Hello and welcome back for another timeless video. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Belcher combo deck. We're looking to accelerate out an early Goblin Charbelcher and then use its activated ability to kill our opponent. In order to do this, we're running the full playset of Chromox, which we can pitch most of the cards in our deck to, as well as 4 copies of Dark Ritual. Another method we have to gain fast mana is evoking one of our 4 copies of Grief to discard our opponent, and then before the sacrifice trigger revolves, using the card Sacrifice to add 4 black mana to our mana pool, which can cast the Charbelcher. Notably, this can also be used to cast one of our 4 copies of Beseech the Mirror, letting us sacrifice an artifact, and then we can either search up the Charbelcher, or if we have one in hand already, we'll grab the Irencrag and add 7 mana to try and win the game. Our bargain targets for this are the 4 copies of Chromox, as well as 4 copies of Wizard's Rockets, which also acts as mana fixing if we want to hardcast the Irencrag. And then we also have 1 copy of Vexing Bauble, which, if we can get it down early in the game, can be useful to prevent our opponents from having fast mana or from using any pitch cards themselves. We have a Demonic Tutor in the deck that we can use to go grab one of our combo pieces, and then we're also playing 4 copies of Leyline of Sanctity and Leyline of the Void today to try and cheese some wins. In the current timeless meta, one of the most efficient ways to disrupt the combo decks in the format is with discard, so we're hoping the Leyline of Sanctity leaves cards stranded in our opponent's hand. It's also pretty good against burn decks, and then I don't think Leyline of the Void needs any explanation if you're familiar with the current meta. When it comes to our MDFC lands, we don't really expect to be hard casting any of them, although again, the occasional Boggart Trawler might come in handy if we're up against a reanimation strategy and we don't have a Leyline of the Void in play already. So that's the deck, and my initial thoughts looking at the list are that the artifact count might be a little bit low for Beseech the Mirror, but we'll see how that goes once we get into the games. And additionally, we don't have a ton of interaction for what our opponent's doing outside of the 4 copies of Grief and the Leylines, so we'll also keep an eye on that to see how that feels during the matches. Before we jump into the gameplay, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe the video. It really helps the channel. And without further ado, let's jump into the games. I think the strategy today, when looking at our hands, is going to be to try and mulligan to a hand that can try and win on turn 1 or 2. And then if we can't find that, we're going to mulligan aggressively for a Leyline of the Void. Although against the Lurrus deck, this is likely to be energy, so we won't employ that strategy in this matchup. Here we have a Dark Ritual, no black mana to get us started. I think we can keep it. We'll get rid of the sacrifice, and we will put the Leyline into play. Does have a little bit of game against the Lurrus. Expect our opponent to try and discard us here, but it could just be a 1-drop creature. Shock in, and then a Deathrite Shaman. We don't mind that one. And unfortunately, we drew Leyline of Sanctity 1 turn too late. It's just going to be a dead card in her hand if we don't pitch it under a Chromox. The Leyline of the Void is turning off the Deathrite Shaman's mana ability, so it is having some use in this matchup right now. Also doesn't have any cards in graveyard that it can exile to deal damage to us. Opponent shocks in again, plays out an Amp Raptor. Ocelot Pride is a fantastic hit for our opponent. Going to start pooping out tokens really quickly. Although they're not quite at the City's Blessing yet, they need to play out 1 more card. And then if we shock this in, we're going to be dead. Don't have a mana to Beseech with. So I don't think we have any outs. Assuming we play Fel the Profane and our opponent has no follow-up creature, they'll still be hitting us down to 1. I guess we would have to hit another Dark Ritual off the top then. So we do have an out, but I don't have high hopes that our opponent doesn't have something here. And there's the creature, so that'll do it. On to the next. This hand doesn't really do much. Mulligan. This puts the Goblin Charbelcher into play on turn 2. Then we can activate it on 3. Also has a Leyline to protect our hand. We'll give it a try. And we'll start on a tapped black land. Swamp, Dark Ritual, Thoughtseize themselves, dump to Grizzlebrand, and then reanimate. We can combat this. See if they have another send here. Don't think they can do anything without gaining life, except for maybe Dark Ritual out a Grief. So they play out the Chrome Mox, lets a mana burn off. Sundering Titan doesn't have any targets here. Looks like our opponent has an Entomb. Don't know if they'll have anything to deal with the Charbelcher in play. We'll have to wait and see. They also didn't fire off an Entomb during their end step. They draw 7 more. Reanimate the Titan, and opponent goes out on their own terms here. Good game. Here we can Beseech on 1. We also have Leyline of the Void. Opponent's on a mulligan already. I think this is a pretty good hand. All right, opponent down to 6. We'll put the Leyline in. And there's the easy win. On to the next. This hand is a bit too slow. This one I think we'll keep, especially if our opponent takes a mulligan here. It does need to draw into mana. Up against the control deck, and unfortunately we miss. So we're going to be in a lot of trouble, I think. It's actually going to be show and tell. So we do stand a chance here. What we can do is when show and tell's on the stack, we'll try and cast Dark Ritual. And then we can activate Charbelcher at the opportune time. Based on that, we're going to be patient. We're not going to play into their counter magic. Plays around things like Force of Negation, Archive. There's a stock up. The fact that they're willing to tap out does indicate that they might have a force. We'll see what they discard here. Give us a bit more information. Containment Priest. So don't quite know if it's a fair deck or not. They're probably thinking that we're oops all spells. They're going now, so we'll try and Dark Ritual. Good counter target if they have it. Put in a Charbelcher. Brainstorm we won't respond to. Warlock's Teaching. Now we'll go. They could grab something like a Stifle effect if they don't already have one in hand. They have a second one. Unfortunate. So now we're just at the mercy of what cards are in their deck. They could also have that 2 mana card. The name's blanking right now that lets them play things at instant speed. in which case they could just go right over the top of our Charbelcher activation. But it's a dig through time instead, which means that we actually stand a chance here. It's not an answer to Charbelcher, and it's not something that lets them play things at instant speed. Opponent should know whether they have something in their deck or if they're just wasting our time. Know their teachings. And they grab another dig through time. We don't care about the horror. Our trigger's already on the stack. And that's game. They were just wasting our time. On to the next. This hand has a turn 2 send. We'll keep. Also has a Leyline of the Void. Scalding Tarn. Could be a control deck. Could be Delver. Could also be Show and Tell. We'll hold on to Grief until we're ready to combo. Don't really want to see Azurus colors here. It's going to be Dimir. Is that just a fetch land? It was. And a Hedge Mage. So this is another Show and Tell deck. Wizard's Rocket. Think we're just going to Grief here. We'll pitch Beseech the Mirror. Try and slow down their combo, and if they don't have an answer, we can play out the Charbelcher. So they're going to need 2 pieces. Bolt in. Strip Mine would also slow us down a turn. We need to find another mana in that case. Did they find Show and Tell again? They did. We'll put in the Wizard's Rocket. I think if we put in the Trawler, we have to put it in as a creature. And what did they hit here? I don't think there's anything except for Chromox and Stifle that would help them. So this will be game. Just wait for our opponent to select their cards. We'll bolt in again. And then while our opponent's tapped out, we'll just win the game. On to the next. This hand has no fast mana. A mulligan. Opponent's on a mulligan of their own, and this hand is also not very good. This one can Beseech. I think our opponent's on 2 mulligans, so we're just going to go for a Leyline of the Void. Down to 3, and on 3 we'll keep. Put back Sanctity, Chromox, Beseech, and Shatterskull. Just keep the mana. Play out a tap land, and black is more important, so we'll start on that in case our opponent has discard. If they play out a Spy and target us, we're going to be in trouble. They Grief. Grief, and then the mana burns off. Hopefully that means we have some time now. Well, if I were my opponent, I might have held on to that Bogart. See if I can play it as a creature and start pushing damage. We'll cycle this right away. and don't need to pay anything. Oh, there's a Charbelcher. Get the Chrome Mox down, just in case our opponent has more discard and chooses that over the Charbelcher, but I doubt it. Theoretically, our opponent just needs one more mana before they can mill us out. And we need one more before we can play out the Charbelcher. Pause here likely indicates our opponent has a Dark Ritual. Can't think of many other instances that the Oops All Spells deck plays. Maybe it's an Entomb. That's true. A lot of them are now playing Reanimate packages. So it all comes down to this draw. And they just concede here, so I guess they didn't have the Spy in hand already. Good game. Real quick aside, before I started playing the matches today, this deck was originally green and black, and I modified it, taking out the Guy's Blessings as well as the green lands and swapped them for red, thinking that they pair better with the Irencrag. It's been a long time since I played this deck, and I totally forgot that the reason the Blessing was in the deck is so that when we are in an Oops All Spy mirror match and we have a Leyline of the Void in play, our opponent can't just mill us out, which the last match reminded me. So just updated the deck real quick, and I'll make sure these changes get in before uploading the deck list to MacLeod. And what we did here is we just went down one copy of Leyline of Sanctity. Back to the games. This hand is too slow. Well, mulligan. This one has the fast mana, but nothing to do with it. Additionally, our only pitch cast card is the Trawler, which means we wouldn't even be able to use Sacrifice. We'll take another mulligan. This is better. We'll keep, and then definitely putting back one of the Leyline, maybe the other land. I think it's too important to have Leyline of the Void. Otherwise, we would have kept the 3 lands. Concealed Courtyard. We'll see if they have discard. Dark Ritual. Maybe a Sorin. Necrodominance. This is beatable. We'll have to see how deep they go, whether they do a value or they go all in. A modest 6. Theoretically, we're going to be empty-handed next turn, so we don't care all too much about discard. I suppose they could be a Storm deck. We'll have to wait until we see more cards. Alright, what did they get rid of? Yep, so they are Reanimator. This is not the Oops All Spells version, so we don't have to worry about Charbelcher. But they could get his St. Helena into play next turn, and that would be able to destroy our Charbelcher. I don't think we have any other choice, though. So we'll play it out. We do have the backup that we just drew, but that would probably not be fast enough. We also need to find our 3rd mana still. But our opponent just concedes. As I just said, we didn't have it yet, so that was definitely premature. On to the next. This hand has both of our Leyline. Could cast a Grief on 2. Gonna give it a try for science. Obviously, it doesn't have a direct route to our combo. We'll put both of our Leyline into play, and then we'll get our Wizard's Rocket down just in case we top deck into a Beseech. We'll cycle it off. Draw into another land. Then hard cast Grief. Opponent fetches. Did they have a Brainstorm here? like they do, so they'll hide the goods, and I'm starting to think this is going to be a show and tell deck. We'll see once grief resolves. Yep, that's what it's looking like. So next turn our opponent can Ancient Tomb out one of these stock ups. And then we have to expect the combo will follow. We don't have any way to flicker the grief, and we don't have any way to play out any 4-drops next turn, so we're in a bit of trouble. Play out Shatter Skull tapped, pass the turn. We just have to hope that maybe they show and tell in a creature, and we can deal with it using Fel to Profane. That's going to be Omniscience, and Atrax is likely to win the game here. Stock up Veil of Summer, more Atraxes, so we can throw in the towel here. We don't have to make our opponent click through it. Alright, so there you have the deck. And we had a bit of bookends there. We started with a loss and ended on a loss. But outside of that, we were able to clean sweep our opponents. Very happy with how Leyline of the Void performed. Not so sure Leyline of Sanctity did as much. But again, there's a lot of discard, so it doesn't hurt to have it. You definitely wouldn't mulligan for it, though. So there is a potential maybe that you substitute that out for maybe a couple more Vexing Baubles or something to help protect your combos. We were able to get a couple Charbelcher wins as well. Unfortunately, we weren't able to demonstrate using Beseech the Mirror to get the Irencrag when we had the Charbelcher already in hand, but that is a line that's available to us here. After playing the matches, another card that I'm not so sure is mandatory in the deck is actually the Demonic Tutor, because if we're going to be mulliganing to hands that can cast a turn 1 or turn 2 Beseech or Charbelcher, then we're not going to be using Demonic Tutor on 2. Which means, again, we might want to go up on our artifact count to improve Beseech the Mirror. Overall, I was very happy with how the deck performed, even though I had some reservations going into it. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content.